The DC Universe is a place full of gods and monsters, but among them, only one is truly king. The magnificent and terrible Turtle Man. In the decades since his introduction in the pages of Superman, the character of Jimmy Olsen has taken on countless identities, either to suit a particular story or to reflect the industry of comics as it changed with the decades. There have been plenty of Jimmy stories seen as foundational to the character, but for many, there's one appearance that towers over the rest. An instant classic that's become synonymous with his image. DC's own King of the Monsters, the Turtle Man. Pieced together from countless influences by a team of veteran creators, the Turtle Man would become emblematic of Superman's pal and his near-limitless Silver Age potential, giving voice to a generation with a craving for adventure and the fear of a future right over the horizon. While Jimmy's subsequent interpretations, reboots, and retcons would see the character evolve across the decades, the strongest foundations of the character will always be tied to this story, and the handful of industry legends who helped shape it. Jimmy Olsen has had a lengthy, complicated history in comics, with appearances stretching all the way back to 1938. But after popping up in decades worth of stories, Jimmy would finally get a title of his own, all thanks to one man, Mort Weisinger. Having co-created icons of the Golden Age like Green Arrow, Aquaman, and Johnny Quick, Weisinger would eventually serve as editor on the Superman line of comics, where he would spend most of the Silver Age reinventing the hero and his mythology. Weisinger would introduce countless Silver Age mainstays through the Superman line, including spin-off series for Superman family members Lois Lane and, yes, Jimmy Olsen. Through Jimmy, the editor saw the potential to tell a new generation of stories, capturing the wonder and adventure of the space age. A longtime fan of science fiction, Weisinger was known for getting hands-on in every part of his book's development, often pulling from stories he penned for sci-fi anthologies like Thrilling Wonder Stories. Unsurprisingly, this led to a lot of tension behind the scenes, with the creatives working under Weisinger often frustrated by the editor's micromanaging approach. Jim Shooter, who wrote for years under the editor's leadership, would say,
"Mort's rules always worked, story mechanics-wise. Easy, idiot-proof, safe. Trying things that explored the frontiers beyond the confines of Mort's rules was tricky, fraught with opportunities to fail. But if you were daring, if you had the necessary depth of understanding and the skills, you could do wonderful things."
Weisinger was challenging to work under, and his ideas ended up facing overwhelming backlash from DC's management. But the imaginary story approach pioneered by the editor, along with artist Curt Swan, sold incredibly well, elevating Jimmy Olsen to one of DC's top sellers and making the definitive tone and look of the Silver Age comics.
I created the Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen books over a lot of opposition, as spin-offs from Superman,
recounts Weisinger.
The management protested that the characters weren't strong enough and they'd never go. But I had a gut feeling, and I talked to kids. I'm not taking credit for the success of those books, but I did know my character and mythology, and the proof of success was in the box office.
Working alongside Swan and a revolving team of writers, Weisinger launched the Cub Reporter into countless Atomic Age setups through the 50s and 60s, some definitely weirder than others. While each story had its own flair, with Jimmy stumbling through time, space, and plenty of weird mutations, it would be in 1961 that Weisinger, Swan, and Superman co-creator Jerry Siegel would unleash a campy masterpiece upon the world. By 1961, the sci-fi boom was in full swing in comics, with one genre in particular looming over the rest: kaiju, or giant monster stories. The American release of Ishiro Honda's Godzilla back in 1954 would spark countless imitators in movies, pulp novels, and eventually comic books, each changing the context and meaning of the original. While Honda's Gojira is set up to mirror the tragedy of the atomic bomb, Weisinger and writer Jerry Siegel turn Jimmy into a kaiju through typical Silver Age shenanigans, having the young reporter find a mysterious growth ray and immediately zap stuff until something inevitably goes wrong.
Oh my gosh, Flois! My hand slipped and I pushed the switch on the enlarging ray. It's passing through the turtle and hitting me. The ray, infiltrating through the turtle, must have transferred some of the turtle's characteristics to me. I can't even talk like a human being anymore. I can only make sounds like a turtle.
Even as Goji and his imitators rose to popularity in America, there is an unwillingness in these adaptations to talk about the bomb and its effects on Japan, complicated even further through the recent founding of the Comics Code Authority and a wider push for kid-friendly stories. Even still, Weisinger and Siegel's story builds heavily on Gojira's original themes, transforming the goofy cub reporter into a radioactive, scaly behemoth that devastates everything in its path. While the colorful 8-page adventure might seem shallow in comparison to the more somber Gojira, it actually manages to build on the film's existing commentary through a broader perspective, showing how this technology could rob us of our humanity if used carelessly. Unfortunately, these parallels don't continue for long. Whereas Gojira held up a mirror to Japan's nuclear devastation, the squeaky clean image of Silver Age comics demanded a tidier ending for Jimmy Olsen. Instead, Weisinger and Siegel tie in countless fantastical elements, having Superman discover the Turtle Man's rampage as part of an elaborate ploy for an Atlantean criminal to claim buried pirate treasure. No, seriously. By page 9, Superman has saved the day, Jimmy's been de-turtled, and everything is back to normal, all fairly standard Silver Age stuff. It's likely that Weisinger, Swan, and Siegel saw this as just another story, a lampoon of some current events through the lens of what inspired them. However, it would be these themes and elements that ultimately carried the story well past its publication, building a legacy that none of its creators could have ever imagined. Like many of the campier adventures in the Silver Age, Jimmy Olsen's time as the Turtle Man fell into what Weisinger dubbed as imaginary stories, scenarios unchained from the larger continuity of the characters and their universe. According to the editor, this approach was born out of a need to find a foothold in a then stagnating market, using single gimmick issues to explore the fullest potential of the characters.
When I took over Superman, a friend of mine told me that these characters, superheroes, were cycle things that can't last for more than 3 or 4 years,
recounts Weisinger.
So it became a challenge for me to prevent them from being just a fad.
In spite of pushback from executives, the outlandish tone of these one-off stories won over readers, and soon Weisinger and his team began revisiting their creations. The Turtle Man in particular has had a lasting legacy, popping back up in issue number 72 of Superman's Pal, as well as subsequent reprints of previous stories. This popularity even lasted after DC's reboot of their fictional universe, with references to the character surfacing in Adventures of Superman and, keeping with his ties to Godzilla, a massive kaiju fight with Darkseid in Countdown to Final Crisis. One admittedly awesome part in a giant mess of a series. But in spite of the character's many appearances, the campy spirit behind him seems to have dwindled over the years. Each of the creators behind the story would leave DC over time, with Weisinger growing disenchanted and retiring, Siegel leaving after a dispute over the Superman character rights, and Swan being abruptly replaced as the head Superman artist by John Byrne. While plenty of creators continued to work on the character, including the legendary Jack Kirby, Jimmy's role in the DC universe has steadily faded since his peak in the Weisinger years, relegating him back to the role of sidekick instead of a character capable of driving his own adventures. Still, for every detractor Jimmy's gained over the years, which to be fair is a lot, he's also cultivated a community of faithful fans, eager to see the character restored to his Silver Age glory. That's the beauty of comics. Every character, every interpretation can get picked up and re-explored by someone who's passionate enough. Meaning someday, we may see DC's King of the Monsters return to the page. Maybe even sooner than we think. Hey everyone, thanks so much for checking out my video on Jimmy Olsen, Turtle Man. This is a story I've wanted to cover since getting into the character, and I've had a lot of fun diving back into the wilder stories of the Silver Age and learning all about the people who made it all happen. Have any favorite Silver Age stories of your own? Leave them in the comments, I'd love to hear about them. And if you like this video, please feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps the channel out a lot. Till next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and be a pal. Friends don't let friends turn into giant turtles.